Every time I watch old movies, I can't help but smile when I see that no one is glued to their phones. Our attention was in the real world. Fast forward to today, every scroll, every notification, every binge watch session. It's not just stealing your time, it's stealing your potential. And overstimulation is everywhere, and it's reshaping our brains, lives, and dreams. But there is a way out. In this video, I'll show you how overstimulation is silently sabotaging your life, and more importantly, how to regain control. Research indicates rising ADHD rates among children. A study analyzing the National Health Interview Survey reported that the prevalence of ADHD among US children rose from 6.1% in the 1990s to 10.2% in the mid-2010s. That's almost a double in percentage. And I don't know about you, but I feel that my dopamine receptors are way more fried now than they were just 10 years ago. We're constantly getting bombarded by things from social media and things from our phones in general. In today's world, our phones aren't just tools, they've become basically extensions of who we are, and we're running around with supercomputers that can do anything, so we're kind of getting disconnected from our true selves by not being present in the real world, but by coexisting in the digital world as well. Overstimulation happens when we overwhelm our brains with too much of something pleasurable, like dopamine-inducing activities. Here's how it works. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, often referred to as the feel-good chemical. It's released in our brains when we experience something pleasurable, motivating us to repeat the activity. For example, when we eat something delicious, play a game, or receive a like on social media, our brain releases dopamine. The issue arises with super stimuli. These are artificially amplified versions of things our brains already find rewarding, like social media, video games, fast food, or junk food. They all offer an instant, often exaggerated reward that floods our dopamine pathways in ways that nature never intended. So what happens is, over time, these activities, they reduce the brain's sensitivity to dopamine, essentially lowering your dopamine baseline. This means that normal everyday activities like talking to a friend or going for a walk or reading a book, they no longer feel as rewarding because our brain has been conditioned to expect more immediate intense rewards. As a result, we fall farther and farther into this rabbit hole of overconsumption and seeking bigger hits of dopamine, and that severely decreases our ability to enjoy these simple pleasures. The thing is, the human brain evolved to find reward in effort, but today, rewards, they come without any efforts. During different periods of my life, I've definitely lost part of my ability to focus on my long-term goals. I've had increased anxiety and felt dissatisfied with where I was in life. I've lost time, I've been less productive and less creative due to overstimulation. And I honestly get a little sad sometimes when I walk past the bus stop and I just see everyone has their head buried in their phone. It's so normal to scroll and binge and consume 24/7. And honestly, it makes me a little sad that the world is that way now. That technology has that much control over us. The only way I found out of this is doing different levels of dopamine detoxing. There are several approaches to implementing a dopamine detox, ranging from mild to intense. The key to these is just to reduce the overstimulation and let your brain reset, so that natural rewards like deep work, exercise, or meaningful interactions, they feel more fulfilling again. Here are a couple ways you can do this. You can go for a full dopamine detox for 24 hours, where you completely reset so you avoid social media, video games, and TV. You also avoid any junk food, caffeine, sugar. You avoid any unnecessary texting with people. You avoid music, podcasts, and audiobooks. And you avoid anything that's generally overly stimulating, like going and watching adult content, for example. Instead, you spend the day meditating, journaling, going for a nature walk, and just generally practicing mindfulness. You can use this to reflect on your goals and your values, and you can actually have this day to really make progress on your goals, because it'll help you align to your purpose again and figure out what you really want, since you don't have anything distracting you for this day. This is pretty tough. I've done this once, where I also did it when I was dry fasting, so I didn't drink any water or eat anything between sunrise and sunset. And it really allowed me to think about some deeper level stuff that I hadn't for a while. This is not my favorite way to do this. I much prefer a gradual dopamine detox, which is usually what I do in my day-to-day life because it's much easier to implement. What you do here is you focus on limiting or cutting one habit at a time to make it sustainable. For example, you could limit your screen time to specific blocks. For example, between 5 and 7, you can use your phone as much as you want, but that's it. You can also set some boundaries for checking social media. Right now, I have a blocker that blocks it from 10 to 6, so I cannot access my social media during those times of the day. This is something you're meant to do forever, gradually cutting out things that don't serve you and introducing things that do serve you to replace those habits. And this works both with a time blocking approach, like the ones I'm doing now. Or you can just set it to, for example, I will set boundaries for checking my social media for maximum 10 minutes a day. That could also be another boundary. And I encourage you to try one of these methods. If you try the short-term 24-hour detox, you'll of course see the benefits immediately, but if you take the more long-term approach, give it a month and see how you feel. I promise you, you'll have clearer thinking, better focus, and more satisfaction in your daily life. And suddenly you realize you have a lot more time for your hobbies and your meaningful goals, and actually making deeper connections with people. And I know it's not easy to step away from it, but it's very well worth it, at least to cut out some of the things you're most likely doing in today's overstimulated world. Please let me know what you want to change and make a comment below with the things you plan to change.